University of Thessaly is the third largest university in Greece, accompanying more than 40,000 students in 8 schools, 37 departments, and with building infrastructure in 5 different cities in the region of Thessaly and beyond. By the time I entered the Department of History, Archaeology and Social Anthropology back in 2021, the sector of archaeology had already a 20-year tradition of offering studies in underwater archaeology. The way was paved by Dr. Dimitris Kourkoumelis and Dr. Alexandros Tourtas, who overtook for many years the heavy burden of forming a syllabus and offer a variety of lessons, all connected to the different aspects of the discipline. When I first embarked on this adventure, I imagined myself as a modern-day Odysseus, navigating the vast seas of knowledge and steering my students through the labyrinthine waters of underwater exploration. 3 years in, I can confirm that the reality is far more exciting than I ever have anticipated. And, dare I say, unpredictable and chaotic. Teaching this unique discipline has been both a challenge and a delight. It has been a journey filled with memorable student performances, some brilliant, some baffling, and some downright hilarious. Along the way, I've discovered that the lessons I teach often pale in comparison to the lessons I learn. Lessons in maritime archaeology are offered in 2 levels, the undergraduate and the postgraduate level. In the undergraduate level, currently, maritime archaeology is incorporated to the program with the 2 classes. Obviously, the first class is the very introductory one entitled Introduction to Maritime Archaeology, offered during the winter semester. It is divided in 13 3-hour lessons extended from early October to middle January. Upon completion, students have acquired a comprehensive theoretical knowledge and a view of the dynamics and scope of maritime archaeology. They have received the basic knowledge about the effect of the hydrostatic environment on the human body and the limitations arising from it, have the ability to navigate through the basic bibliography, are able to analyze ancient texts and iconography and derive information of nautical content, have acquired the basics of the methodology and the tools of an underwater reconnaissance survey and an underwater excavation, know the special terminology that possess basic knowledge, of the methods of ship construction in antiquity, have acquired the basic knowledge of amphora and amphora typology, very basic for operating the Met, and have the basic knowledge of the enactments protecting underwater cultural heritage. This is by far a very optimistic and ambitious syllabus to be achieved. After 3 years of teaching, I'm happy if we obtain to achieve halfway those targets. Honestly, when I first started teaching this lesson, I left the classroom with the impression, oh my God, what ignorance is that? And this was my first mistake. I, as a teacher, had to comprehend that things that were incorporated as a second nature in my everyday life for the past 30 years, and things I considered for granted, were completely unknown to my students. To understand what maritime archaeology is all about, you need to have some standard knowledge of what generally archaeology is. If, however, students register this class directly after entering the University of Thessaly, they might not have got yet a clear picture of what archaeology is. The first class of 2021 was a total success in terms of participation with 138 registered students, which is a very high score for a lesson that is not compulsory and is selected between a large variety of core lessons offered during the semester. Maritime archaeology emerges in the curriculum as an exotic choice between more conventional lessons, something remote from the common experience, something adventurous, if not heroic. Let me say that there are ways of luring students into my classroom. Some of them I consider very cheap. An opening image that offers the very best perspective of the field, diving in perfectly preserved shipwrecks, shiny clean waters, and undisturbed visibility. It is indeed true that underwater archaeology can get very fascinating, flashing, and impressive, if not to say sexy. For those, however, who stayed in the field long enough, the mere truth is that underwater archaeology usually is stinky, it is greasy, and it is nauseous. But in an introductory level that is meant to hook young students, you always choose to project the best qualities of the profession. In a class of 138, usually, the average attendance in every lesson ranges for 50 to 70 students, still a high rate of attendance. The students, however, have an uncanny ability to remind me that they are, after all, humans with limited attention spans. This number is diminished in half after the break in the middle of the 3-hour lesson, a clean sign that they had enough maritime archaeology for the day. Theory might be vital, but it is also dry, literally and metaphorically. I quickly learned to spice up my lessons with anecdotes about shipwrecks and underwater discoveries. I learned to walk up and down the classroom using my hands for giving emphasis to what I say and raising my voice when the agony of a discovery is culminated. Abstract theory must be conveyed into vivid mental images, sparkling the imaginations of students who might otherwise drift into mental shipwrecks of their own. Teaching the current generation in an academic level resembles with giving a theatrical performance. Being that as it is, a 3-hour lecture is a procedure that consumes every drop of your energy. And if in the end your back is hurting, your hands are hurting, if your voice has become hoarse, if you are sweating, then this all are good signs that you delivered a good lecture. Registration of this same lesson in the following years fell down to a more regular level. Probably the main reason was that the high rate of failing the final exams. No matter how flashy maritime archaeology might look to the common eye, you still have to read and you still have to perform in the exams. Probably students got word from their colleagues of previous semesters that the whole adventure of giving it a try was finally more demanding than expected. There was also a misconception in the early classes that if someone has a diving certification, you will get some kind of bonus. On the following spring semester, the lesson offered is a major entitled Archaeology of Shipwrecks and Ship Construction. My suggestion to the students is to register in this lesson if they have, not to register in this lesson if they don't have passed successfully the introductory lesson of the preceding semester, because it is a more advanced and demanding lesson with quite a lot of technical details and specific terminology. The usual number of registrations rates between 40 and 60 students, with a tendency this number also to lower down for the reasons expressed also for the lesson of the winter semester. Theory is a dry appetizer before the main course of underwater practice. Practical sessions are the crown jewel of the studies offered. They allow students to test their mettle in diving, surveying, and excavation underwater. Diving practicals also reveal a student's ability to adapt to an often non-forgiving underwater environment. Here, the classroom theory is put to the ultimate test. The stage for the practice is set in the archipelago of Furni, a cluster of 20 islands lying in the eastern Aegean. It is a project I started with the effort of Underwater Antiquities back in 2015, and was originally launched as a lasting survey to locate and document ancient and medieval shipwrecks. After 4 years of intensive work, we located over 50 shipwrecks, and in 2020, after measuring our potentials, we decided to excavate a unique, in terms of cargo, late Roman shipwreck with a depth zone of 40 to 50 meters. By that time, I was flanked by a tested and dedicated crew from the Koutsouflakis Institute, and I felt very confident about that. I had already a long career in the effort, and I had no idea that 10 months later I would resign from my former office to become a professor at the University of Thessaly. Had I known that, I would probably have chosen a shallower and less exposed shipwreck to serve as a ground of practice for my students. But the standards were kept high, and I never backpedaled from this decision. If the students really wanted to join underwater archaeology, they would have to take a big breath and jump into the deep. Only a very few of my students make it to this final stage because there are specific prerequisites. Number one, and I would say the most important, that they have to excel in the final exams so that I know that they are serious about it. Number two, less important, they have to be trained as divers. But students already certified as divers are extremely rare. In a class of 100, there might appear 1 or 2 in every semester. Diving training has always been the Achilles heel in the University of Thessaly's curriculum. It entails a large financial cost for the trainee, a cost that a student cannot easily bear. After 20 years, in 2024, was the first year where the University of Thessaly covered a large amount of the training cost. There was no magic formula to make this happen, and this decision had a serious impact on the research budget, as the cost of training was paid from the limited funds that the project receives from the university. Let me say that before becoming a professor, I always incorporated a limited number of students in my project, and some of them, through the years, became members of the hardcore of my group, the kind of comrades I can't work without. But there was an essential difference. They were not my students, and as such I felt less responsible for their education. In maritime archaeology, the gap between theory and practice is enormous, and there is nothing to psychologically prepare novice students when they enter for the first time in the world of an underwater project. They have to understand their position in a strict hierarchy. They have to be constantly alerted. They have to learn to walk amidst a working environment full of boats, engines, compressors, and generators. It is expected that the first steps will be unstable, but there is experienced personnel to assist them. However, they have to learn fast. For those who do not have yet the diving certifications to walk underwater to this specific wreck, extra schools are offered free of any charge from professionals instructors to upgrade their qualifications according to the standards demanded. This is all paid from the Koutsouflakis Institute based in Thessaly. For those that are not yet there, they can support the project with other tasks, since extra hands are always in demand, and receive also diving tours in shallow wrecks according to their diving qualifications in order to gain experience. However, from a certain point and on, everybody is expected to deliver. And not forget, diving and walking underwater is just a part of the learning procedure in the field. There is a cycle of other chores and trainings that the trainee will have to follow to get a complete picture of the works, to learn how to keep a proper diary, to catalog, produce drawings of pottery, to give a hand in the conservation lab, and to operate an ROV. All those are part of the basic training. You might think a love of the sea would be a prerequisite for students in maritime archaeology. Think again. I have students who, despite their enthusiasm, struggled mightily with diving. There is nothing quite like the sight of a future archaeologist clinging on the side of the dive boat, pale-faced and muttering, "Get me out, get me out." And nothing beats the moments when my students are struggling with buoyancy, are floating up like balloons, swimming in an upright position like a bunch of seahorses, or are reading the compass the wrong way. Then there are the overconfident ones who leap into the water like dolphins but forget basic protocols like securing the gear. They surface right after with an apologetic grin and no fins or no diving belt. Looking after lost equipment has become quite a regular part of the survey. The diversity in student performance have taught me to value curiosity over technical perfection. Sure, I've seen students who could fly a drone and navigate an ROV or produce a 3D model of an amphora. But it's the curious ones, the ones who ask, why did they build ships this way? Or what does this article say about daily life? Who remind me what the very essence of the discipline is. If there's one thing that these 3 years have reinforced, it's that the sense of humor is indispensable. From grappling with reluctant dive suits to deciphering students' cryptic underwater sketches, I've learned to laugh at the absurdity of it all, of how clumsy they can get when passing from boat to boat, of how unnautical they can appear. But again, no one was born a sailor. The experience gained after 30 years in this business persuaded me that not everybody is fitted to be an underwater archaeologist. But let's say my students taught me a thing or two about patience. This stereotype conception is shifted after entering the university. The last 3 years on the field, I handled students that were natural talents in diving. I handled, however, also students that were less of a natural talent and they had to struggle very hard to perform a decent dive. I can only say that I have the highest appreciation for people who fail, stand up, dust off their clothes and get back into the struggle. So for the ones who failed, there will be always a second chance. No one will be left behind, not in my class, not in my shift. Conclusion. 3 years of teaching maritime archaeology at the University of Thessaly have been a remarkable journey. I've watched students grow from wide-eyed novices into skilled professionals, each bringing their own strengths, quirks, and perspectives to the discipline. And I've learned that patience, adaptability, and humor are as essential as expertise in this field. My students tested my patience, made me laugh until I cried, and remind me why I fell in love with this field in the first place. Maritime archaeology is at its core a study and a celebration of humanity's enduring connection to the sea. This connection is reflected not only in the artifacts we uncover, but also in the stories, laughter, triumphs, mishaps, and occasional chaos that define the learning process. As I prepare to embark on my 4th year, I do so with a heart full of gratitude for the lessons my students have taught me, and the hope that the next batch will provide just as much material for my future lectures or even a book. Thank you very much.